And 5. Oh,
But yeah, you can go ahead and press. You can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Looks like they're setting up the meeting, and we are live. Hey, everybody. You are watching and listening to the We Are Rising podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I am joined by my co-host from down south, J. Christian Gary from Focus Fights.
Hey, y'all. How's it going? And we're joined by our traditional friend from Southern California, our favorite Bellator commentator. Well, as far as recaps and reviews and all that, TeeptotheJunk. How are you doing, sir? Oh, wait, I forgot. You're from Boston, not from California.
Yeah, that's right. What's up, fellas? Yeah, you confused me with J Wolf. Shout out to J Wolf. What's up, man? Thanks for having me, guys.
The guy who loves Grand Prix and all, but still, though, after a crazy year for Bellator and an even more exciting year ahead, I mean, just quickly before we get off into the meat and potatoes of it, what grade would you give Bellator MMA this year after all this transpired?
Me personally, I mean, I'd give him like an A minus, and it would be an A plus, except some of the rankings were a bit insulting to some of the athletes, just here and there, some little issues, but of course they are improving, and it was the kind of framework where it was going to take some time to pan out. If you hadn't fought in a certain amount of time, you weren't eligible. So you had stuff like, Vitaly Minakov with a phenomenal heavyweight record, not eligible to be ranked. Like, hey, what are you guys doing? But it was just the way the system was set up. But it's really starting to get kind of tasty right now. You guys agree on that front?
When it comes to the rankings, I mean, the thing about the ranking, so Bellator is still, it's still a little bit of a weird, the problem is that they still don't, the roster is not like a set in stone roster. I mean, it is, but the problem is that, they'll bring in, people for like one-off fights or, I guess people that are not, they kind of, the rankings, starting off with rankings, like there are people on there that are like, I'm so confused that they're still on the rankings, or, I guess, top 3 and top 5, make sense in Bellator when I've looked at them. But then, you have like, their welterweight division, which is, I think is maybe the weakest division in Bellator. Then you have other fighters that are unranked. I think at first he was unranked, Fedor, but now I think he is in the rankings. Is that correct, T?
Yeah, he's I think the number 3.
So he went from being unranked to being number 3. So yeah, the problem is it's just that, like, I think that they need this. They do top 15, right?
Top 10.
Oh, they do top 10. Okay, yeah. That's better than top 15. I'll say that. But I think they definitely have to do something with, like, I guess, trimming the fat of some of those rankings, and just come to the realization that there's some people who just don't belong on there. I know the big one was the MVP one. That I know you're very much against MVP being as highly ranked as he was, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, well, at one point they had him ranked over Amosov, and pretty much everyone agreed Amosov was the top contender, and it was really they're trying to matchmake with their rankings. They shouldn't be matchmakers. They're media members. They just need to rank who should be ranked highest, rather than thinking, oh, I want to see this fight, because they're messing with people's money. So, but those instances have actually trailed off. There's very little BS right now as they close out the year and we're looking at the coming year. The rankings are pretty good. They're not perfect. There's some favoritism there and some name recognition, guys, a little bit too high. But on the whole, I would say that they're doing a pretty good job. Like, it's 1,000 times better than when they first unveiled them, because it was going to take some time, just the way they had it set up. With, you have to have fought in that division within 15 months, and I guess we'll get into all that. But I'm happy with where they're at, and in another 6 months from now, I expect they'll be fully worked out and pretty much coherent. But even as it is now, I'm very happy compared to not having rankings, because it lets people talk about things, talk about matchups, In a way they couldn't necessarily before because with UFC, they're used to latching onto the rankings, even if they disagree with them. It's a talking point. You go, this guy is here, well, he should be here. But if no one's ranked anywhere, then it's all, to some fans, it's going to seem like a free for all.
Like
That nothing.
I'm looking at the rankings right now for light heavyweights. Number 6 is Lyoto Machida, but I thought didn't Machida retire?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Oh, I thought he retired.
Yeah.
Well, and then you have number 10, Melvin Manhoof, which I don't know. I don't know how he is number 10. And Julia actually, so there's a tie for number 4 apparently. Oh wait, no, that's actually never. So number 4 they have Anthony Johnson, who I don't know. I thought he was inactive due to the
legal issues.
yeah.
Basically.
And that, but you have Julius Anglicus higher than Carl Albrechtsen, which I know that Anglicus just had the title fight against Vadim kind of short notice, but I don't know how he would even be high at this point, even ranked higher than Carl Albrechtsen. So the problem with their rankings is that like it's still really like they're still trying to like I feel like wade the water when it comes to like figuring out like the proper way how to see who's anything that's below I'll say number 5.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is so the media members who are ranking for them, they've distanced themselves from it. So they say, okay, we've assigned I think it's between 15 and 17 people they submit their rankings. It goes to a company that tabulates the points. That's the rankings, whether the organization agrees or not, the rankings. And these media members, they're used to the way the UFC ranks. So, okay, if you're the champ and you lose, you're automatically the top contender, basically. And it's hard for people to get past you, even though you're coming off a loss. So certain things you can see the perception of how to rank a sport is shaped by the UFC, which has the most prominent MMA rankings. And I see a lot of that where it's hard to overtake someone, even if they've lost a few in a row. They're still ranked above guys on a win streak with quality wins because it's almost like a bias to where somebody was. Personally, the way I see the rankings is you don't deserve anything. Inherently, there's no, oh, this guy deserves to be here because I like him or I think he's good. It's just who won, who lost, and what level did they win and lose at, and what's the pace of their wins and losses. What's the speed of their schedule and the strength of competition. But so the way they are ranking isn't out of line with the way the UFC ranks its fighters, although I disagree fundamentally with how those rankings are done. Like, if you're the champ and you're not like a long-time champ and you lose a fight, well, the guy on the best win streak with elite wins is the top contender when the champ loses, not the champ who just got his ass kicked. Even though he might be a better fighter, but it's a sports ranking. It's like you think of league sports where they have a coherent way to rank people. So if you lose, to a team, you don't get to be like, well, we like these guys anyway, or they're famous, so they can make a lot of money. You have to earn the ranking. You don't deserve anything. It's just about wins and losses. And if you think that team is certain team and they lose, they don't get to advance in the playoffs coming off a loss, because even if they're the top seeded team, even if they were the favorites to go all the way. So I think in fight sports, they're still working out how to do it, at least in mixed martial arts. And so, those issues are sort of a systemic issue that's not necessarily going to be addressed just within Bellator. It's just the way people perceive the sport. Although I do like that now the ranked fighters are starting to fight each other. Over time, these things will pan out. But it's been a bit of a transition going from having top fighters who weren't even eligible because of how long it had been since they competed during a pandemic when they didn't have events. What did they take? Like 9 months off in the 15 months that led up to the rankings. They hadn't had events for 9 of those months. So that's just something they're just having to navigate. It was going to be a bit of a messy transition, but I do like where they're at now. Things have started to come together. There's still some outliers, but in general, it's a lot better than it was because people are fighting each other. But you do see bias. You see like Usman Nurmagomedov is the ranked number 3 lightweight. I mean, he's 14-0 and he has a lot of finishes, but he's ranked over guys who have far better wins. And that's just how it is. Some guys can't get their credit for a win. Maybe it's because the rankings panel are thinking of, did you finish him? Or was it a close fight, or did they disagree with the decision? It's hard to say how you get the average of 15 to 17 people, how they perceive the sport. So they may hold finishes versus decisions or close decisions as a higher priority than just did you win or lose, which might explain how someone could lose a few, like Benson Henderson's ranked number 6 right now, lightweight, according to them. But, if you're coming off losses, like, should you be ranked over, like Mamedov or someone who has good wins, coming off wins, who's not losing? So it's a tricky thing, but they are worked out, and especially as if they lose a certain number in a row, they're probably not going to be retained by the promotion. They won't even be there to screw up the rankings with their fame. So there is that, so that sort of caveat is that in spite of there being some biases, there is a turnover. It's hard to keep a roster slot. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Have you seen that they've been signing new contracts with a lot of athletes over the last week? Did you check that out?
I know they did with Patchy.
I mean,
Patchy, James Gallagher.
To be honest, I haven't seen the fact that they've been signing new people. I'm just surprised that the announcements of them firing people have just gone under the radar.
Well, sometimes they just don't renew the contract. So if they have someone for 6 fights and they get down to fight 6 and they've lost their last couple, maybe the money they're paying them, like, we're not going to give you a raise, and we're not even sure now if the cost benefit is worth the same money. So you've seen very good fighters go that way. Ricky Banderas is a great fighter. He's a very, very capable, has a win over Gallagher, who's highly regarded. Gave Archuleta a really tough fight. A lot of people thought that Banderas won that fight, but he didn't stay with the company. So it's not always a diss on someone's abilities, because it's all cost benefit and also momentum. And that's just how it goes. That's something that UFC fans have been especially dealing with for a long time, is when guys get released or their contracts aren't renewed, they're like, oh, this guy's better than a lot of guys who are still there. But it also comes down to what money is being asked for and what money is already being paid out, compared to looking for, like, say, Julia Budd. She's absolutely one of the top fighters was one of the top fighters in their bracket. But
when it came down to her losing the Cyborg, she basically went under the radar and then left to go to the PFL.
Right, and she won after that. So she wasn't coming off that loss. She won, but when her contract expired, the guys, the bean counters, they're looking at cost benefit always. So for fans, it's a little painful because in MMA we don't get a lot of co-promotion. So when someone leaves the company now, you're kind of Xing them out from the possibility of fighting the guys who you're familiar with in the company. UFC fans have dealt with that pain. I remember when I was a UFC fanatic right after they absorbed Strikeforce, and that was the main thing. Everyone was there. It's very frustrating, the politics and the ranking politics and also contractual politics. But that's how that goes. It's fight sports. Ultimately, each of these fighters is a team. They are a business on their own, so they have to make the best decision. The promotion does the same. So I just advocate for the Ali Act, which would structurally enable co-promotion. And I say that in spite of that I'm really enjoying the rankings, the internal rankings, but I see some of the problems in Bellator's rankings, just like I did with UFC, that would suggest that things would be a lot better with third-party rankings, real ones, not third-party guys, MMA media members. I mean, like third-party, like the Ali Act, where the sanctioning bodies have to write down exactly how you earn ranking. It's not like we just felt like doing it or it's all mysterious. You actually have to set it down so athletes can look and see what they can do to gain and earn ranking that they then keep, regardless of who promotes them.
Jeep, I don't mind it. I apologize for interrupting you. I don't want to get into a whole tangent about the Ali Act, because I know that's you're very passionate about that. So
that's how you get the money, but I won't bring it up. And I do like the rankings there. I'll just talk within the league format that they have currently, which I'm really enjoying. I'm not unhappy with it. I always, on principle, I have to go for the athletes, and that's how you get them the money. That's all I'll say on it.
So regarding Bellator 2021, I want to ask, so what did you like that they, I mean, well, they had Grand Prix. We all love Grand Prix, obviously. So the part of the light heavyweight Grand Prix, and then the announcement of the bantamweight Grand Prix. We also had the finals of the featherweight Grand Prix. And how do you think that the Bellator has done so far with two big Grand Prix, and we got and the bantamweight Grand Prix being announced for next year? Do you think that Bellator has structured and has has made these Grand Prix can't miss can't miss fighting?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, I mean, they've been just phenomenal. I personally, the tournaments are good. When Bellator used to do tournaments, that was a lot of people enjoyed that as well. But it's kind of a rushed season. Like it's not like a regular pace of a career, so they have to jam in all these fights. And if I'm not mistaken, the champs are sitting out until the tournament, having like a soft fight in between all the tournaments right now. So that's the one thing with the season. MMA, there's a training cycle. There's also like an injury cycle, recovery cycle. You jam tournament all when you mush it all together, that kind of changes the issue. Though in the extreme, you have like the best tournaments and the pride tournaments where you might fight three times in a 72-hour span. But that's a little different than okay, you got to fight in a few weeks from now, where you're not like still in peak form. You don't do one camp for the thing. So I like the way they've done the tournaments. Given us some fantastic moments, right? It's the heavyweight tournament had some really exciting fights and also some really, really boring fights. But I think the welterweight tournament on the whole delivered, with a few exceptions, including the 5 rounds of Mckee daily that I sat through live, pissing off my wife that we were even there. Like, this is what you've been talking about, you bastard. But except for getting in trouble.
If you can, I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi, but you're cutting in and out, and I'm picking up like sometimes like every other words.
Okay, hold on. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna go find a good spot. Okay.
Okay, no problem. I guess while we wait for Teep, Chris, was there anything that Bellator did this year that was that stood out for you, positive or negative?
To be honest, I can't really say anything that they. I mean, I think the only thing that they've done positive was the fact that they have managed to do a successful run of shows at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut in front of no fans and made the atmosphere feel like you were actually there up until they went back to live shows and, doing shows at the Forum in Inglewood, California, which I think their first big show was Mckee versus Pitbull at the LA Forum. But ever since then, they managed to do all they could trying to, make everything safe, working with the COVID protocol and all that. But obviously, when it comes down to utilizing their people around them, especially when it comes down to getting Kyoji Horiguchi back in the promotion, it was pretty much a great thing for them to do, even though obviously Kyoji lost. But still, though, I can only hope that next year they'll do something. I mean, I can only hope that next year, should COVID, clear up, that they can do more and more international partnerships. Like, we're still, obviously, Andrew, we are still hoping for Bellator and Ryzen to do a second show together.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah. Hey, don't forget, remember, even Scott Coker said that they're initially going to do the beginning of that Bantamweight Grand Prix in Japan. I don't know if they had planned for any Ryzen bantamweights to be in it, but certainly Kyoji would have been in it. What they were starting in Japan, but it'd be really curious to see, it's one of those things like, what do they have plan to bring over some Ryzen bantamweights for the Grand Prix?
Dude, let me tell you, when it comes down to when it comes down to Bellator potentially doing a show in Japan, of course they would have gotten some Ryzen fighters involved. But the fact is now that they can't because Japan is locked up on COVID and who knows how long they'll open back. I mean, who knows how quickly they'll open back up. It
For
probably will
real.
be about 6 months to a year. But still, when it comes down to that, I'm just not surprised that there wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that there wasn't any rising fighters to show up on the card for Kyoji Horiguchi's next fight.
Mm.
Well, with
Yeah.
the exception
Hey guys,
of Tanaka.
Oh, you sound
hey,
much better.
I'm better. You got okay. I'm outside now in the cold. That's how much I love you guys. Actually, I'm
Yeah.
fairly immune to the cold, so it doesn't really matter. You might hear some cars going by on the street on the other side of the house. No big deal. Hey, and tell me if I'm being boring or running on, man. Keep me on point here,
Oh, I
because I've
will. I
worked
will.
days and nights, so I'm
Straight
like I'm
up.
like half zombie. So don't let me get all boring. This is a lot of fun. It doesn't always translate the way I discuss it because I'm a nerd and I start to get all nerdy. But fucking hey, the main storyline of this year is Fedor team. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Fedor team. Fedor smacking the shit out of Tim Johnson, who just went 25 hard minutes with Moldavsky. That was my main thing that happened this year for me as a fan. Fedor showed that he still got that power and still has the speed and agility, even though obviously he's old and he's admitted he's got injuries and he feels old. But he still
You know
fights
what
better than the young guys.
About Fedor team, Teep? I mean, no disrespect to Fedor Emelianenko, even we all know his last fight is going to be in the summer months of 2022. But how about the career progression of Vadim Nemkov?
Sorry, Chris, you broke up. I couldn't hear you.
He was
I
saying
was, ba-
Nemkov. What about Nemkov? Well,
yeah,
Nemkov's brilliant.
I was basically asking, what about the career progressions of Valentin Moldavsky and Vadim Nemkov? Obviously, Nemkov's the current light heavyweight champ. He's got a bout probably coming up within the next 6 months. Moldavsky's got a fight with Ryan Bader probably 1 month from now.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And Anatoly Tokov, who's got a phenomenal record, and he's at middleweight, and he's ranked now because he came in and he won, and he's in the pipeline too. Although middleweights, there's some beasts. Like my
Yeah,
dream fight
but
right now, a
him,
middleweight is Van Steenis and Anatoly Tokov. But Van Steenis being the protege of Musasi, so he won't fight Musasi. But Musasi may. We're not sure how long he's gonna. There's a little bit of complications there, but Tokov is primed to contend himself.
yeah, but I
Vadim
was talking
Nemkov,
about Nemkov and Moldavsky, not Tokov,
yeah,
who's right middleweight.
so let me stay on point. So Moldavsky has looked really good. He's got surprising cardio for a guy who's as big as he is. And he's got a nice, almost like a herky jerky sort of like his movement. It's different than Nemkov. Nemkov's very precision based. Moldavsky, it seems like it's a controlled chaos of sorts at times. He has good technique, but not as crisp. Because Nemkov, I mean, this is a pound for pound top guy in the MMA right now. One of the top talents. Extremely fast and technical for a guy his size. Dangerous in every single position. And like his mentor Fedor, he applies tremendous pressure on the opponent, and he's looking for mistakes. So he's applying pressure, he's circling, he's feinting, he's double jabbing, he's changing levels, he's switching between looping and straight shots, he's kicking the legs, he's doing takedowns. It's very hard to predict for the opponent to predict what he's going to do. And he has a fantastic skill set. And then when they make a mistake, boom, he's on it. He doesn't sit around. He's not coasting for points or it's a very offensive strategy in general, not much of a feeling out process. He's applying pressure, and that's his feeling out process, is making them work. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think this is the toughest fight for him in the bracket coming up with Corey Anderson, who's looked amazing, really hitting his stride. And Moldavsky as well. Moldavsky not quite as quick, but he is quick for his size, and he hits harder than Nemkov by probably maybe with a little less precision. So that fight with Bader's really good too. I think both those guys are going to retain their championship status. Do you guys have thoughts on those fights? How you might see them going?
Andrew?
Bader, Moldavsky. I think Moldavsky. I don't know what's with Ryan Bader, but he's looked not so not so good in his last few fights, especially that Corey Anderson fights. It's one thing to lose to Nemkov. It's another thing to lose to Corey Anderson. I'm not insulting Corey Anderson, but he certainly is not the same. He's not the same. Doesn't seem like the same dominant fighter that he was when he was on that little tear a few years ago, up until the end of the bantamweight tournament. I mean, not bantamweight, excuse me, light heavyweight tournament. So yeah, I definitely have to go with Moldavsky on that. And what was the other question? I apologize.
Oh, it's all good. Just how you saw maybe. Well, you just addressed it. I was just wondering how you guys thought about the matchups. Like if you had any premonition about how they're going to go.
Oh yeah, I raised up my piece. Chris, any thoughts on Bader and Moldavsky?
I think when it comes down to Beta versus Moldavsky, they're really doing it a disservice by having the fight take place in, I guess you would say, Bader's hometown of Phoenix, even though he lives out in Scottsdale or something. But still, you're not going to have educated fight fans going to Phoenix, as they're basically just going to boo and chant USA and all those stupid other chants that, we North American fight fans have grown accustomed to. But still, if I see that Moldavsky beats Bader in Phoenix next month, I won't be surprised, because then it'll just be the Team Fedor takeover of Bellator, like everybody imagined it would.
Damn right. And it's nothing certain in the sport. Especially Corey Anderson has tremendous power, and yeah, with Bader, it seemed to me like he tried to pressure forward too quickly against a different kind of opponent than he's been fighting. With Corey Anderson, do you really want to just get right in his range and step into him? Because that worked with, say, Congo, who's a little more cautious. Bader was rocking him with that lead left. He sparked Fedor with that lead left, but Corey Anderson's a different kind of fighter, a lot younger, more explosive at this point. So, yeah, I think that was a tactical mistake on his part. I do give him a meaningful chance against Moldavsky, but I don't expect him to win. I mean, he's in his late 30s, extremely good. He might be as talented, like the most talented he's ever been, but he's also dealing with the physical realities of a body, and he's getting on a little bit. So I think that's what the drop-off is. It's not that Bader has gotten worse or his IQ has lowered. If anything, he's improved, but mostly, although the Anderson hiccup, that he paid a big price, but maybe he would have taken that shot a little better when he was younger. The
So
time spares
basically what
nobody.
you're saying is he's reaching his expiration date, right?
He's maybe getting, yeah, I mean, like every fighter, when they get up to a certain age, if they're not a brawler, then they've been improving the whole time, right? Their tactics, and technique. So, but at some point, the body drops off, and it doesn't matter if the mind is willing. You can overcome certain things, but there's some stuff you just can't get away from. Time spares nobody. So yeah, he's at that point. The question is, can he surmount size and age and use his experience and skill? Because Moldavsky's had some good fights, but he doesn't have anywhere near the experience at a high level as Bader in years or in fight count. So he has opportunity there. It's just that, Moldavsky isn't a stupid fighter. He's not someone who's likely to make a dumb mistake. And he's shown he has a chin. He took hell from Big Tim Johnson. Johnson sparked Tyrell Fortune, and I was shocked. That was one of the most shocking outcomes I've seen in recent years in Bellator, when he just completely just deaded him. So Johnson has power, and Moldavsky took an awful lot of punishment. He dealt out more than he took, but he also took an awful lot of punishment in that fight from a big, full-sized heavyweight, a guy who, really, if he was walking around, wasn't training, he'd be well over the heavyweight limit. So yeah, these are good fights. I favor Fedor team, but not by a whole lot, especially Anderson and Nemkov.
Sorry to interrupt you, Teep. I do want to keep on topic, particularly when it comes to the best and worst of Bellator 2021. So since we're talking about Vadim Nemkov, let's talk about who best male fighter of the year of 2021 for Bellator. Who do you think would get that award? Do you think it's Nemkov? Would it be Pettis? You could even make it, I think, a possible, under the radar for Corey Anderson.
Andrew, I would have to say the best male fighter of 2021 for Bellator is AJ Mckee.
That's I was also thinking him, but here's the problem. He's fought only once, and since the other guys had more than one fight, I'm not opposed to putting him in that category. I think you could definitely put him as a breakout fighter of the year. And
True. especially considering the fact that when he won that title, defeating, was it Patricio or Patricio Pitbull?
I can't even remember which one it is. You probably know better.
But yeah, when he
Oh
won the
yeah, it's
title from
Patricio.
one of the Pitbull brothers, he basically felt like he was on cloud nine, and he just, he basically just, excited fans. And this was like the first time that the fans came back for the Bellator show in Inglewood, California, outside of Los Angeles for marketing purposes. You know, you could tell that Mckee was just ready to be a superstar. Hell, he's basically had all his fights in Bellator from the time he debuted to the time he won the championship. So yeah, who's to say he isn't a contender for breakout star of the year? But he's broken out ever since his debut in the promotion. So I would say that he's the my top choice for fighter of the year in Bellator, despite the fact that he only fought once.
Hey, I think you can make a good argument, especially as they didn't start fights this year till April 2nd. So having one fight
And,
in a year
uh,
out of the
at
eight,
that
it's different.
particular time,
Hold on, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time.
Sorry, fellas.
Oh
yeah,
no, just
at that
somebody at one
particular
at a time.
time,
I'll get who it is.
basically they were still fighting in the empty Mohegan Sun Arena.
Yeah, when they came back in April. So I mean, it was a compressed year. Really didn't do fights all year, for the entire year. So I think you can make an argument for McKee. Although I hear you, Andrew. I mean, it's hard. Sergio Pettis is hard. Like McKee beating Pitbull was intense, right? And that's high level. But Pettis doing that to Haraguchi when we know how accomplished Haraguchi is himself, that's pretty tough. I think you can make an argument for other guys. I would always lean toward Fedor team. So like for me, even though he only fought once, I'm looking at what Fedor did to Big Tim. For me, just personally as a fan, not trying to anything even unofficial, but like Fedor, that was the moment of the year. Sparking Tim Johnson like that with that speed and that beautiful combo, that beautiful three piece, almost like the one he opened up his fight with Chael with. Throw the right, the left, and then come with the big right again. Except Tim was right in line for that right hand. So, yeah, but I think McKee is a good argument. I don't know. It's tough, man. All these guys deserve a lot of praise.
I'll definitely put like Mckee, as like made it the overall pound for pound fighter in Bellator, simply because he's undefeated and he basically has dominated every opponent that he's been with. So I think in that case, I would definitely put him as pound for pound. Hopefully next year he could get 2 or 3 fights, and he could really truly be like a male fighter of the year for Bellator, or even just because I think he's Bellator's. I think if it were not for, it would either come down to him or Vadim Nemkov as like the future of like people of like not can't miss Bellator fighters. Like Agent Mckee is gonna be presuming that he doesn't that this isn't his peak and then he falls off, because sometimes that happens with some fighters. If he continues going on the ways that he's going on, man, he's gonna be up there. He's really gonna be up there as their best fighter.
Yeah, and I think also as far as must watch fighters, you got to shout out Aaron Pico. Has he had a boring fight yet? He has not. Win or lose, that's a guy you got to watch and don't blink. Because when he lost, it was quick too. So like I really think Pico, when they signed him around the time they signed McKee, those really were intended to become what they've become, which is you got to see these guys fight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But
I get
they
it.
have.
I totally get it. Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
But considering the fact that we're talking about best fighters for Bellator, I mean, obviously we know when it comes down to the women's fight game, Chris Cyborg is obviously the best. Juliana Velasquez, the women's flyweight champion, is, the best at her division. But who would you say in this case would be the second best, or I guess second runner up to the best woman in Bellator right now.
Well, I don't know about the best, but as far as like the performance of the year, you got to, you know, Liz Carmouche sparking Watanabe was
Uh,
perhaps the greatest performance of the best women's performance of the year. Because we expect Cyborg to win, right? Especially her last fight. No diss on the opponents, but we're expecting her to win. But that fight, I was like, hey, I don't know. She just steamrolled her. What do you guys think?
I thought it was sad to see Kana Watanabe get steamrolled by Liz Carmouche, but obviously Watanabe was just overmatched, especially considering the career pedigree that Liz Carmouche had.
Yeah, I mean, it was that's a powerful win. I mean, not the highest level win that's happened, but sometimes, you know, with performances, it is relative to the strength of competition, but it's also what it is. Just like over in boxing right now, there are legitimately people discussing Jake Paul sparking T
Oh,
Wood
yeah, don't
as
get me
as one of the
started.
knockouts of the year, even though they know Woodley isn't a boxer, but just because of how it looked and what it was. So the same thing in MMA.
Are they
People
really,
have their own
really
preference,
saying that, Teep?
including
Seriously.
some boxers. I'm not joking. Even some people in the industry, media and boxers, are saying you got to put it in. You got to put it under consideration because it's a nice knockout. The thing is, part of it's like how pleasant it is to watch. I mean, that does carry a lot of pull. You know, that's
I
just
mean,
fair
yeah,
or not.
I'll get it.
Fair or not.
I'll get it. It was a devastating knockout that Jake Paul had, but it's not going to get him knockout of the year or, breakout fighter of the year. But going back to the whole point on Bellator's women's division, yeah, I'll say it. Liz Carmouche is one of the best fighters in Bellator. Probably one of the best of this year, obviously. But, you know, I would have to say it. I would probably think that the fighter who has her like right there, it would have to be either Kat Zingano or Arlene Blencowe.
Yeah, you could argue that, but I think we can all agree probably Cyborg takes the cake, right? She's the not just
Well,
the top
duh.
pound for pound woman, but she's female fighter of the year for the company. I
I
would
mean,
think, right?
isn't it obvious? Cyborg's one of the greatest women's fighters of all time, regardless of what some promotions say. And obviously, she's one of the MMA pioneers for South America, let alone Brazil. She's the greatest women's featherweight fighter of all time, period. And I think that she just doesn't get her recognition right there. I mean, she just doesn't get her recognition at all because of the fact that, because she fights in Bellator, she's basically leading the island of misfit toys or something.
Yeah, she. Oh, I like the Moneyball reference. Bravo. Hey, yeah, I think I love that movie. Anyway, let me stay on point. Yeah, I mean, some people are trying to not give her credit because they have other favorite fighters. They want to make an argument. People they think are close, they could argue it over the line. That's just fight sports, you know. But if you look at the resume and you look at the record, you know, because people say she lost a fight. Well, yeah, well, we just saw Nunes lose a fight. So any argument for Amanda Nunes' greatness doesn't diminish because she just lost. Even if she looked terrible and got schooled, that doesn't change the argument because what's on the resume? It's not about what people don't do, it's about what they do. So it's the same thing with Cyborg. She lost, she's won fights since. You know, she's one of the greats. And
So,
like you said, a
Steve,
pioneer and definitely female fighter of the year for Bellator, 100%.
I was gonna. So, with that being said, do you think that really at this point that the only fight that could be made at 145, maybe next year for Bellator's featherweight women's featherweight division, would be her versus Kayla Harrison?
If the UFC doesn't snap Kayla Harrison first and have her forced down to 145, then yeah, I would definitely see
I'll
that.
be honest. I don't think UFC's interested in her anymore. I don't think you because when if Amanda Nunes is losing, you kind of the talk for that fight is now dead. I'm not hearing anybody talk about it anymore. So the only other potential interesting fight for either one would have to be Kayla Harrison versus Cyborg. I think.
Yeah,
That would be fun, but still, though, here's the factor. We all know that Kayla Harrison, at best, is a natural 155er, which is not really an easy thing to say about women's fighters, especially considering how rare the women's lightweight division is, thanks PFL. But still, when it comes down to it, Kayla Harrison's a natural 155er. It would basically take leaps and bounds for her to drop to 145 just to fight Cyborg or anybody.
But I think she wouldn't get to challenge for Cyborg's title, but they could create a one-off, because they do that. They do a one-off fight at contract weight, 155, so health and safety, you know? And it's still a big fight, even if there's no belt at stake.
Contract weight would have to be 150.
Why? Oh, I see what you mean, because it's not outside of a weight class. Yeah, all I mean is that they would just let Cyborg fight at 155. That's fine. She cuts a lot of weight. That'll be a pleasure. And they can have a fight. And Cyborg will probably destroy her, and it'll be really entertaining. You know, but they can do a one-off thing. They don't need a 8-fight contract for Kayla Harrison at the money she'll want, but she's worth it. She's worth the money. The cost-benefit works for that one fight. But I think maybe you have Cyborg Zingano, and they just announced that Leah McCourt is fighting Arlene Angerfist Blanco, which is a lovely fight. That's a huge step up for McCourt.
I kind of think that fight's going to be in Dublin, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's a big fight. That's a big European fight. I love it. And the winner of that is going to fight for a title, I do believe. Because McCourt, they've been grooming her, right? They bring her up, and now they're finally ready to put her in a title shot. It's a thin bracket. So you give maybe Zingano a shot. You have them fight Cyborg. Cyborg probably wins, but whoever wins fights the winner of McCourt and Blanco. Because Blanco, she's winning below that title level. So even though she's lost these title fights to Bud and lost to Cyborg, if she's beating everyone else, you put her in there because it's all relative to who else is in the bracket. It wouldn't be like that at welterweight. There are lots of guys coming off of wins with good wins that would be worthy of a shot if someone loses their shot. But it's a little different at women's featherweight. I'm cool with it. You know, as long as people aren't getting screwed, I'm cool with it. You give the people the shot they've earned, keep it a sport, and then promote what the sport is doing rather than trying to sculpt it like a soap opera.
Teep. So we're going back, just focusing on best and worst. I want to ask, in your personal opinion, what was your favorite finish, knockout and submission for this year for Bellator?
Oh man! So it was my personal favorite.
Yeah.
Well, Nemkov subbing Anglixis, Fedor knocking out Tim. I mean, it's always going to start with Fedor team, pretty much end the thing, for me personally, because that's what gets me most excited. The greatest of all times and his students. That's really what I value that as a fan as much as everything else put together. You know, in the whole sport, in all of combat sports, I'll just follow Fedor team if I had to pick, if I had to choose between the two. So I'm always going to go to that. But I think the best strike and submission, I'm really looking at AJ Mckee kicking the great Patricio Pitbull, who's a long-reigning champion, a two-weight champion, but long-reigning at featherweight. Lots of defenses, kicking him in the dome, and then submitting him with his own specialty. Mm-hmm. You can't top that. So I give him both, even though he didn't really knock him out. But, if I have to pick another one, it's Fedor sparking Big Tim. Doesn't get any better than that. That's a beautiful three-piece Fedor throws in combination. He's a better heavyweight than a lot of these young guys in the world. Even though they have younger bodies and he's old and broken, his skill set and his IQ, if you mess up, Fedor's going to get you. So, and I think they're going to have him fight Congo because he wants to fight ranked guys, right? Congo beat Karatanov. Congo is the highest ranked heavyweight who isn't Fedor's student. So that's the fight to make. If he wants to fight at the top level, you give him Congo. And that's a fun fight for a Fedor fan because Congo is not fast enough to get out of the way. One more highlight. You got to love it.
But are you sure that a Czech Congo fight would even be watchable?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not just they're a U.S. promotion, but they are the leader in European MMA. Like, they have the deals over there. It will be a big fight in markets for them. But, I'm not saying that's definitely the fight because, if they could get Brock and bring him in for a freak show, the only problem is Fedor has stated he wants to fight guys who are doing well. So Congo just beat a Russian guy, Karatanov. If you're in Russia and you've got Congo who just beat a Russian legend, and then they're going to match him with Fedor, I think people will really dig that. And we got to think internationally, because that's been the main transition in the Coker era, is transitioning from a regional promotion to an international promotion. And they have the best European roster, hands down. There's no promotion on the planet in MMA that has a better European roster than Bellator. I mean, they signed dozens of people. It was a meme. They've signed so many. Oh, you signed the whole SBG gym. Well, they did. They also signed a lot from Team Renegade and London Shoot. You know, they're snatching up the top fighters from the top gyms and top emerging fighters and bringing them up. Not everyone makes it through, but a lot of serious people. And this with McCourt, this is huge, because they had her as one of the headliners in one of their like dual events they were doing. So she was headlining a European card as a woman. That was big.
You mean basically by dual events, you meant when they had that previous relationship with Bama, pour one out.
Then they ate Bama. And who knows, maybe Viacom were the real people running Bama. So when it was time to fold them in, they folded them in. We don't know. I mean, they got some executives. They got a lot of the roster. So there has to be a relationship there. But, you know, who knows? I mean, MMA has joined the corporate age, right? So that's good. That's stability. That means fighters can trust that they're going to get their checks and everything like that. You know, when I see it was kind of unstable. The last golden age, things were a little bit unstable, and there was a lot of uncertainty for athletes. Were they even going to get compensated? Not with every company, but in general. It's a little different now. The money is there. So, no, it's a good thing. And the corporate age brings these relationships, this sort of vertical and horizontal integrations, and that's just how they're doing business. So I like it. You know, things are stable. Bellator is very stable. The roster kicks a lot of ass, and they're putting on a lot of great fights. I'm really excited for all the announcements we're going to get. Especially now with the rankings, you know what I mean, guys? Like, so Mamedov and Bendo are fighting, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, yeah, they're going to be fighting on the same card as Bader versus Moldavsky next month.
Right. So normally I'd be like, okay, that's a fight. I don't even know if that'll be an exciting fight. But the fact that they're both ranked and that the rankings are starting to inform the title chase, it raises the stakes. Because people are trying to fight their way into the rankings, you know, and as long as the rankings panel doesn't do goofball stuff like we've seen them do a couple times, where, you know, guy will beat a fighter and they don't even rank him, or they don't give anyone credit, like when Danny Sabatello beat Brett Johns. They were both debuting in the promotion, but Sabatello extending his win streak against 17-2 Brett Johns, even if the dude's not ranked, he's not ranked because he was in the UFC. They don't rank guys until they've had a fight, so they didn't really give credit for the win. Like, why can't he be in the rankings? They had so stuff like that. I don't really like that. You know, you got to give people credit for the quality of win. So well, it's just whatever, though. It's working itself out to the degree that it's going to with the structure it has. It's working itself out. So it's a best case scenario.
Sorry to get back to interrupt you, but I want to make sure we're back on topic when it comes. I know you gave your knockout. What about submission? Who do you think has some cool submissions this year in Bellator? Right off the top of my head, I think probably Chris will agree with me on this, but AJ McKee's submission win over Patricio.
Yes, I definitely agree on that, but mostly because of the fact that it, for AJ McKee, was a star-making performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to give it to him. I mean, Patricio, that guillotine, that's one of his best moves. And to get him with it, I mean, there's not much you can say to top it. Although I have to say the grappling attack that most thrilled me this year was Pico, what he did to Aiden Lee. He was slapping him around with the anaconda attempts and things like that. That was really exciting for me as far as just submission prowess, and seeing Pico integrate his skill set is fantastic, very inspiring. So, but yeah, I don't think you can top. I mean, Andrew, can anything top AJ McKee guillotining Patricio?
Well, the only other one I could think of, and maybe this is recency bias, was Spike Carlisle's submission win at his Bellator debut this year at the.
Andrew, you're basically saying that because you're a big Spike Carlisle fan, huh?
Well, it was also a great comeback one as well. That's the other thing.
Understood. And plus, you were there from press row just to watch it live.
Yeah, yeah. I know you might if you wanted to. You see, I would. I'm hesitant to put Patchy Mix's a win over Gallagher because Patchy missed weight, and I do have general issues when somebody misses weight. But as a submission win itself, Patchy Mix and guillotines go together like salt and what was it? What's the saying?
Salt and vinegar.
Salt and vinegar. Yeah. So certainly, hey, listen, if you want Patchy Mix's uh guillotines, listen, you got another one there. You got another one there.
100%. That was a tremendous win. And, the invert, whatever you will call that, from Mount, flipped him over. I mean, that was beautiful. And I really enjoyed that fight. I think for me personally, the roster has gotten so good that now some of these matchups, whether or not there's a lot of action, the tension of what it all means for the company, within the company, is giving me an extra boost. So that's very gratifying. Because I'm watching Bellator a lot since like mid 2014, especially when they did the rebrand at 131. So that was like November 2014. I've been going show to show. There's been turnover obviously over that time, and man, things are so fun right now. That's the bottom line. All this stuff trying to talk about it, but it's like just what's happening. I haven't really been on social media as much because I have boxing research and projects, but also I don't want to. I can't spare all the energy. The energy is enjoying what's going on right now in Bellator, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. Showtime production is tremendous. I just really have no complaints. Everything's good. Showtime isn't that expensive. The prelims are on YouTube, so I can rewatch all these prelims fights. And these prelims, have you guys noticed how stacked a lot of these prelims are? You have a lot of young talent that's really going places.
You know what? Let's just talk about the prelims real quick because I like how they've been introducing people to downloading this Pluto app. And no, this is not a paid advertisement for Pluto. And yes, Pluto TV is for free. But still, when it comes down to Bellator, they've been utilizing a lot of these prelims on their Bellator Pluto TV channel as well as their YouTube. So even if you can watch it back later on YouTube and enjoy everything for what it is, you can experience it. You can experience everything on the Pluto app and actually have a feel for what you're watching, without having to pay too much.
Yeah, 100%. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
they have the Pluto TV channel, so they do reruns of events and things like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
Showtime, it seems like they put up cards from the archive that are relevant to the fights that are on the upcoming cards, rather than have a full archive. The same thing DAZN did.
It was no different than when HBO, put up fighters that were headlining their pay-per-views down the line from like years ago. From like years ago when HBO had boxing, but still, you're kind of right on that.
Yeah, you just use what you got. These companies are all trying to pierce the ever thickening sort of bubble of like this overwhelming just barrage of fight content across the different rule sets. So everyone's got their own angle where they're trying to pierce through. And so, I like the moves Bellator's been making, and the roster right now is ridiculous. And I'm not going to start trying to talk about how deep some of these divisions have gotten because we want to stay on point with the best of, worst of, predictions, all that stuff. But the roster right now is sick. It cannot be summed up. You used to be able to name some of the top fighters and you get a little sprinkle of fighters and those are the top guys. No, it's not like that now. This is deep. So it's a lot of fun.
I do have to put an addendum that happy that Showtime is there and all that stuff, but I think that there's some there's some shows that don't have any business like being on a paid service. Like don't take this. I'm not personally attacking you, but Velasquez and Killholtz, that did not deserve to be a show on itself. I thought like if there's times I think there's times to offer shows for free and all that stuff, but I think that should have been just like a YouTube like exclusive show or something. You listen, your Nemkovs or your debaters or the higher profile fights should absolutely be like Showtime exclusive. But I think just some of those shows are absolutely not worthy of being like on a paid service like Showtime.
So wait a minute. What you're basically saying is some of these obscure shows from Hungary or France now, especially.
No, not even. Not it's not where they're from, but it's who they're headlining. And the problem is you know, and you know, if there's a you certain people can headline shows by themselves, but then listen, I like the Velasquez Killholtz fights. Like nobody like. I think that may have been one of the. I think Bellator was possibly running on a pose that week. I think I can't remember, but I remember there being like virtually no talking about it. Nobody was gave a shit
And you
about
know what? That sucks completely for anybody trying to run a show unopposed, and not have people talking about them.
And that's why I think that some there's that the Bellator, especially with Pluto, YouTube, they should have the option to, hey, you know what? Put some of these shows for free on YouTube, the entire show, live.
Yeah, I could see the point, and I know that you guys, with the pro wrestling, you're you're more intimately, hooked into the ins and outs of promotion and making a splash, like you were saying, making the announcements at the show, all the announcements at the show for the next show and things like that. But
Yeah, so like a small show
in a
like
previous talk,
yeah.
so I'm not really the guy to weigh in totally. I like what they've been doing. I just try to look at it and understand why it's run. So it's just the business model. It's like, so Viacom, CBS, they merged. They, after a little dancing around, they went Paramount to CBS Sports, and then they moved them over. Now they're on Showtime. It's going to be main cards on Showtime for that as part of just the Showtime package. That's really what it comes down to when you go all the way up to the highest corporate level. There's a Showtime package. Bellator is part of the offering. So their main cards are on Showtime, and then they're putting the prelims on Pluto TV and on YouTube. And
Especially, hey, if you want
that's
to get more
just how they have it
subscribers
set up.
if you want more people to download and subscribe to the Pluto app, definitely offering like a live show, like a full live show on there, not just prelims, but the full thing would be like that. I think that'd be great. I really do think that'd be great, and would definitely.
Well, actually, how the hell can you say subscribe to the Pluto TV app when it's for free? Come on, man. Think about it.
No, downloading and yeah.
Download the app from the Google Play Store or the Apple iTunes Store. It's well worth the free 99 that you're gonna get, especially for all the shows that they got on there.
Because I also probably going to guess that most people watch the prelims on YouTube. I don't think a lot of people do tune into the Pluto app. That's my guess. I feel because YouTube is just so easily accessible and is the I think probably that.
But I think one thing. Oh, sorry, fellas.
No.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I don't have like cable, but I have a smart TV and an internet connection. So when I watch Pluto, I don't have the app on my phone. I watch it on TV. So that's the channel, the Bellator channel. When they say, see the classic fights on the channels, with Pluto TV has all these different channels, and some of them are just they run one show or one topic on loop, not on loop, but it's an endlessly just that same thing. So, like say I don't know the Addams Family, they have so many classic channels. They have all that. They had a Doctor Who channel that I got sucked into for 2 weeks, catching up on my shows from when I was a kid. So and this have the Bellator channel, and they also have like a boxing channel. They have a general martial arts channel with different rule sets and things, and so it's good stuff. So I think a lot of the people who watch, they're probably watching on a smart TV. And there's you can get YouTube there too, but YouTube isn't as easy to navigate on the smart TV.
Oh, really?
So
For me, it's
that's
so
what.
easy. I have my own. I have the Amazon TV. I go on the YouTube app on the Amazon TV. It takes me right to YouTube.
Oh yeah, no, to get to it, but I like to search on it. You have to like go through like the old '80s style, like click, 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 B, click, 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 V. Like if you're trying to type something in, whereas with Pluto TV, you just open it and go to that channel, and there you go, you're there.
Okay.
It's that easy. Put in your favorites. That's what I would. That's what I did. Is I put them in my favorites, and I don't have to do anything to get where I need to go. But I think between the two, that's a good offering. You just want to make it available for fans. I definitely hear you about if they did a full card for free. Of course, that's ideal. But it's partly also where's the budget coming from, and it's really corporate is just saying like, look, these are your main cards. They're on here. It helps us build subscriptions for our focus. So these decisions are made way above the Bellator level.
This is gonna sound harsh, but I don't think anybody subscribed to watch Holtz and Velasquez.
No,
sure
absolutely. But it's also the people who are paying for it. Are they getting content? And that wasn't the only fight on the card. So on the main card. So really, it's if you look at it from a corporate programming sketch point of view, above the Scott Coker level, his bosses and their bosses and the board, these decisions are made at that level, and they're just like, look, this is how it's going to be. You put this, you can have this for free. The main cards go here. It's part of the Showtime brand. Everything's branded Showtime. We got the deal with BBC iPlayer and Virgin Media in Ireland, and that's how they're putting it out. And because it all comes down to the money they're putting out. They have a budget, and so.
But but the businesses have to realize, what? Some things are just not smart business decisions, and some are, that's the problem. Is that if not everything, sometimes the people running these things know what they're doing. Other times, it's just like it's baffling, baffling decisions that I can't understand. I still think that Bellator should offer their some shows. In theaters, in movie theaters. I've always believed that. Listen, I think the movie theater experience is, especially now, because it's still, when I went to go see Fury Wilder in theaters, it was not sold out, but it was very packed. So I wonder, Bellator would, if they could still do the theater thing for their shows. I think that'd be great. A great option.
That could be really cool. I mean, who knows? I have no idea what they're doing. I'm at the point now where I get a lot of value for my little, whatever it is, $10 a month or something. And that's tiny. I pay more than that just for access to the newspaper archives where I do my boxing research. So it's a small outlay for me. It's well worth it. I feel like I get a great deal. I can understand though, you guys look at these promotions structurally for growth and how you building the base. But for me, I'm tuned out from it. I'm enjoying it all so much. I'm just thinking about matchups, rankings, and just now that they're stable, because the whole attack on them is like, oh, Viacom's going to close them. They're about to be shut down. Goofball's been saying that since 2014. Not you guys, but people have been saying it. Worried about them. But I knew what was up. I'm like, no, man, they didn't spend like whatever, 50 million to buy Bellator from Bjorn and whoever the other owners were at the time. I'm bringing Scott Coker to screw around. I mean, they know what they're doing. They knew it would become this. It would evolve into an international property, and they'd be putting on fights and making power plays in the region, in different regions, like in Russia and in, especially in Russia and then in Europe.
Come on now. Listen. If Bellator ever decided to stop running shows in the United States and Russia, the one place they should just be like an exclusive promotion, Ireland. I think.
Yeah, Dublin. They should move their headquarters to Dublin. The love that they were shown at those events, the energy and the involvement, and how early. See, part of the excitement for an event, you can tell how packed it is early. Like bringing up Jake Paul. I know, sorry, Christian, but Jake, like someone tweeted out that the place was 75% full by the time that the prelims started. I mean, that's passion. That's people coming for a night. And that's what they did in Dublin.
This was last night in Tampa, right?
Yes, I believe so.
That's crazy.
I think they had over 8. I can't remember exactly. I think it was like over 18,000 people there.
Well, the arena packs like 20. No, the arena in Tampa packs like 22,000. So.
Yeah, not sold out, but think about the event that's happening. You got Woodley, who people respect, but they know he's older, and not a boxer. But it's really the star power and Jake Paul, and there's some other good fights on the card. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, but it was like interrupt, guys. I don't want us to get into a Woodley Paul thing, and
yeah, let's keep it Bellator. But basically, everyone's
come to think of it. I mean, since we're on that topic, do y'all potentially want to see Tyron Woodley in a Bellator cage?
Nope.
No, I want to see him box. I'm enjoying the ride. Sometimes, life is absurd. MMA is especially absurd. So with a lot of these things, I'm just enjoying the ride. Just trying to see what happens.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to get back to the topic. So Ireland, obviously that show was great. Event of the year for any MMA show this year. But what about France? Remember, they're the first major MMA promotion to have a show in France this year. So, do you think France could also become one of their hotspots to put on shows? Especially because showcasing French fighters like Yves Landu, Congo. I believe he's French, right? Shit, Congo, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll absolutely be there because now that there's at least one major show and some minor shows going on there, then now that draws people into the gym. That people who, it's one thing to dream of being a fighter. It's another thing to know that there are events that you can get to and make some money. That some people are making money doing it. So that's why Bellator, the European circuit, has been phenomenal for the scene there. Because now it's not just all this stuff's happening over in the States, and wouldn't it be great if I'm going to go train and fantasize, but it's like you can have a career. You can be a full-time fighter there. It's much easier now than it was before. So wonderful things happening around the world in MMA. The industry is just growing and growing, and there's a lot of exciting stuff. There's a lot of exciting stuff I can't follow. I don't have time. So I focus on Bellator, to some degree Ryzen, especially when they're interacting with Bellator, and the rest is all, just my research. So, and a lot of people like that. There's more than anyone can watch. And isn't that a great problem to have?
So actually, let's talk about a little about Bellator and Ryzen. Do you think? Okay, let's just say 2022 it gets better. What would you like to see in terms of a Bellator / Ryzen show? Do you want to see kind of like the same concept last year, where they kind of had like a Bellator versus Ryzen thing, or would you like to see for certain shows, maybe the bigger shows, you have some Bellator fighters and Bellator Ryzen fighters, Bellator fighters go to Ryzen. What would you like to see in terms of the Bellator Ryzen relationship?
Oh man, the more cross promoting, the better. Now Ryzen's doing Ryzen rules in the cage. That's where you have your Bellator versus Ryzen rules. That's a great middle ground, right? So you have the cage wall, you have the cage space to work with, but at the same time, the Ryzen fighters have the full rule set that they're accustomed to. So that's what I think. I hope that the Bellator Japan post-limbs, which were really a Ryzen event that utilized Ryzen rules in the cage, I said at the time, I thought that was a test run, right? And they didn't really want it too public in case something went wrong. But now Ryzen's straight up doing it. Now you can have the rosters collide in sort of a middle ground of sorts.
You know what? About that whole Bellator Japan thing, I really thought it was a disservice for us to have to watch it, however the hell we watched it.
Chris, remember? I think we had to find fan videos and stuff.
We had to find bits and pieces of the video. Of the event, of the post-lim, just to see them. But the point of the matter is this: nowadays, Bellator is just nowadays Bellator is just gobbling up international interest, and Ryzen desperately needs to get out of that rut that is Live Now. Not to disrespect Live Now, but all they got is concerts and obscure sporting events.
Hey, actually, Chris, you bring up a great point. Sorry to interrupt you this time, but what'd be great if Ryzen could somehow get on Showtime. I think that would be,
it would be a fun idea. M1 Global done the same thing when they were, buddy with Strikeforce.
But because if they're never going to go back on Fight, which is the premier, fighting, combat sports, pro wrestling, whatever service. Listen, Live Now, if they went on Showtime, I guarantee they would get more eyes or just as much as they were when they were on Fights. I guarantee that. I'd be willing to put money on it.
Oh no, they'll probably get triple the eyes. if not quadruple the eyes that they had on Fight on Showtime, even if it's in a taped format, like if they somehow
Yeah.
take part of the New Year's Eve show for this year and air it like in March or something.
Well, I was even say they could air the shows. They could just air the shows live, and then they're on demand later, kind of just like the same thing that they do with Bellator shows. Where you can watch them live, and then they could be I think streamed at any time, right? Right, Teep? I think is that how they do it, or is it like at 8 p.m. on Sunday they re-air the Bellator? I don't know what they do with like on demand stuff.
Well, here's the thing though. If you see a Bellator event happening at like 10 p.m. on a Friday night, it's going to get replayed Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Tuesday evening on Show Extreme or something like that.
Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot. Like it's like the show Extreme. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they do. I'm not sure about the live re-airings, but because I watch. It's like in the archive, So you go down to sports, and they'll have. That's where they put some of the events that contain fighters that are relevant to the card in question. But then after the fact, they'll put it up. I think it's like 24 hours later. It'll be listed in the archive. So, but I think it probably stays up for a few weeks. I'm not sure exactly how long. It doesn't stay up forever. It's not just a vast that I've found. It's not just a vast, endless archive. So it's certain specific things that are up for an amount of time. But
again, I wish that not to get off topic, but yeah, like if you could have, if Showtime, which is where one of the few places that does have boxing now, because I think HBO totally got rid of boxing. So
yeah, 3 years ago, we know that.
Yep, and now they have MMA on their thing with Bellator. And I think they have some other sports as well. I'm correct.
Yeah, basically they had MMA from 2006 with Elite XC to 2012. And then obviously they came back in the summer of 2020 just to, give everybody what they want. MMA on Showtime again.
So yeah, listen, I don't like it'd be great if Rising could get on there. It really would be. Or when they eventually hopefully, do the Rise and Bellator show. Listen, Rise, if that's the way that Rising could get on Showtime or something, or at least get notice on Showtime, listen, you know what? That will do more for them than be on live now for the next 10 years.
Nobody wants to envision that. I give them at least 3, maybe 2.
Oh yeah.
Before they go on to another platform.
I'll ask you this, Teep. Is there any particular fights that you could think of, Ryzen versus Bellator, that you would love to see?
Oh man, yeah. There's a few, but I would kind of like to see the Asakura brothers coming on over. There are a lot of different matchups too. I'm pretty easy to please at this point. I'm so excited by everything that's happening. They can hardly go wrong if they come over.
Is one of your thoughts the Asakura brothers versus the Pitbull brothers?
I could see that. So, like, let me ask it. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I wouldn't mind seeing one of them fight like Aaron Pico. Pico is a lot of fun to watch. Win or lose, it's going to be a dramatic fight. And that's really what I'm in. That's what I like to follow. I like the sporting structure, and I like dramatic martial arts happenings. And so, yeah, I could see that. Thankfully, they've actually already scooped up some of the light heavyweight talent that had been in Ryzen.
Right.
Actually, T, I gotta ask you. Sorry to interrupt you again. Lightweight. Listen, we don't know what's happening with Tofik and Ryzen. You know what? Should Bellator sign this guy as soon as they legally can?
100%. Yeah, they should, because that's a kick-ass division, and he's on fire. And when the other Lee brother, the older Lee brother, when he was a free agent, people saying, "Oh, you got to get him," but no, I mean, he's good and he's young. He's signed with Eagle now, but he's lost 2 in a row and 4 of his last 5. That's not the guy you get. You get someone like Tofik. That's worth the money. That's investing in the future. Already proven, and has a win over Patricky. You could bring. He's the reigning champ, right? Did he vacate,
no,
or is he
not? he's the Grand Prix champion, but from 2019.
Yeah, you bring him in, have him fight Pitbull. And while that's happening, you have Usman fight someone, and the winner of Usman and someone, maybe Primus, fights for the belt.
You know
Fights the
what?
winner. I
And
would
I
love
like
that.
the idea of Karamov going to Bellator, but how about how about they get Vugar Karamov, his teammate, into Bellator?
He did have a
What
fight in
division is he
Bellator
in?
once, I think. Right, Teep? I think he had a fight like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Did he?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What weight class is he at?
Bantamweight, 135.
Wait, no. Karamov's at 145. Musaev one lightweight, 155.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 145 is pretty stacked in Bellator. I don't know if that's a division where they're even looking for anyone right now because they got a lot of factors to play out. You know, and the shape of the pyramid does count. You have to account for injuries and pullouts, but there's only so many people you can channel toward a title shot, or either toward a title shot or out of the company when they lose too much. So I don't think featherweight's really a division where they need it, but like, an Asakura at featherweight, well, that's a big deal. That's not a guy who's trying to prove himself. Those are already stars in their own market. So I think they should go for that. But, Musaev, 100%. Has a win over Patricky, the reigning champ. Come on, you could hardly, it's just like with Haraguchi in a way, where you have someone's championship
Gucci
level,
versus
bring him in.
Pettis. But yeah,
Exactly. That was, and I
it was,
said for a while, oh, sorry, go ahead, brother.
but yeah, fights like that sell itself, especially in the case of, Pitbull's looking for revenge and all this, that, and the third, and the rising invasion or something. That would be a huge selling point, especially for Showtime to get much needed Japanese interest.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of opportunity there, and you guys are more familiar with the Ryzen roster at this point because it's more Japan centric. It's not as international as it was, and I've sort of trailed away because I have other obligations. So I'm really so focused on Bellator. I have to ask your guys' advice. I know they have a lot of top talent. What about your thoughts on who should come over and either fight in Bellator or fight Bellator fighters in the cage under Ryzen rules?
To be quite honest, I would say King Raina, but King Raina is such a lost cause that she would get smoked by every single women's featherweight fighter on the roster before getting the win. So yeah, that's my thought about that. But when it comes down to actual winning fighters that mean anything worth a damn in Rising, hmm, I think I would have to say you get Cable Koike Herbston to rock. You get Cable Koike Herbston to Bellator as well. Hell, bring the entire Bonsai Jiu Jitsu clan over to Bellator for at least a few fights, like how they did with Kimbo Slice's family and his team, when they wanted one offs, or how they did with, AJ and Antonio Mckee, have Antonio Mckee fight his one off fight on the card of his son. That would be really cool just to see, it would really be cool, especially for Roberto Satoshi de Souza to get that much needed international exposure, just to give him the opportunity to, shine in the promotion. And as far as, must-see fighters who I think would fit well from Bellator to Ryzen, obviously Patrick Mix comes to mind. Maybe Aaron Pico would come to mind. Hell, maybe get Denise Kielholtz into the Ryzen ring just to give her a little feel for kickboxing again. But still, though, I think that there are so many fun Bellator to Ryzen and Ryzen to Bellator crossovers that I don't even think I would have, you know, the wherewithal to tell y'all in this podcast window.
Well, let me ask you, who's the top one, like around that 115-pound range?
Oh, you mean the top fighter is strawweight? That would have to be Reina. But unfortunately, Reina lost in Rise in that one opportunity. I don't know if she'll ever be brought back.
Oh, I see. Because they have like Kerry Melendez, Bellator, and some other women who can make 115. They might, they do one-off fights of that division. They don't have a division yet. Like it's not a title division, but
Oh,
that could
oh,
happen in
oh,
the
oh, oh,
future.
oh. I would think that Kerry Melendez versus Reina would be a nice little fight to sell.
That would be
Especially,
beautiful.
yeah, especially considering the fact that Kerry's still kind of young in her MMA career. Reina's probably reaching the 10 or 15 fight level at this point in MMA. That would be a hot fight.
Yeah, and what about Valerie Loreda, who won a comeback fight? And what about her going over, Taekwondo in the Rising Ring? What do you think about that? She's definitely marketable. We know that.
Oh yeah, she's definitely marketable. She would definitely be marketable to the Japanese fans if she were to go over there. I just hope she can get her attitude in check.
No, she's doing good, man. She refocused. She came back strong. She's got a strong mind. She was competing in Taekwondo. This isn't her first rodeo in combat sports. So is it? But there's a perception and there's the actual athlete. She's just going straight ahead, doing her thing, promoting herself. I think she'd do really well over there. Whether or not she'd win, who knows? That's the matchup would decide that and the approach. But I think that would be a great move for her career and for Ryzen, get some international attention.
Actually, so Teep actually found that topic. So here's what 2021 2022 Bellator, Scott Coker, whoever comes up to you and says, Teep, I want you to recommend us that we sign one fighter, one male, one female. Doesn't matter who it is. Well, I was going to say they have to be a free agent, obviously. So a free agent or working for one of the promotions that works with Bellator. So, which male or female fighter would you like to see get signed by Bellator in 2022?
Yeah, I'd say you get Kayla Harrison in on the women's side if it's possible, or do a one-off between Cyborg, one of these high-level boxing matches she'd like to do. Something in that realm. Even if they co-promote for the Kayla fight although she's free of PFL, so they just book a one-off. That would be the one I would recommend personally. As far as the guys, I'm not sure. Like I would have said, I mean, Bandeas just lost. He won and then he lost outside the promotion. I would have said get him. There were some guys I'm really not sure. I mean, I'd probably defer to y'all because I'm not sure who's on the market. And Coker's kind of said we're happy with our roster, so really we can interpret that to be until some contracts run out or people are released, they're not going to be signing beyond a big name available. Who's available? Is it Nate Diaz? Got one fight left, even though he's going to lose to most of the guys at lightweight or welterweight. Well, all the guys at welterweight, but he'll lose to most guys at lightweight, I think, at this point in his career. But that would be worth the money. That would bring huge attention. You think they should go for that?
No, I really no.
Big name.
I
How about Brock?
no.
Brock versus Fedor. It would be hilarious.
I
If
not
the WWE doesn't have him tied down to chains and balls, ain't no way Brock Lesnar is going to go to Bellator. Neither him nor Bobby Lashley are willing to go to, or in Lashley's case, back to Bellator at all.
Yeah, I understand. That would have a great.
I think Kayla Harrison's the easiest choice for a female fighter when it comes to getting signed. I'll tell you this. You know what? PFL again. I think Bellator should sign Ray Cooper III.
Well, that's a good idea. That would be legit.
I think he's welterweight. Yeah, he's welterweight, and I definitely think that they need to do a lot more of their welterweight division because I think they have a lot of fighters who are not that good in their belt, or at least not. Listen, it's basically right now. Welterweight at this point is Asimov, MVP, and Lima. Those three. That's who it comes down to.
You're forgetting my dude, Joey Black Eyes Davis. I'm going to say it every show I'm on. Future welterweight champ, in my opinion. I'm telling you guys, if you watch, go back and watch. A lot of his fights have been on the prelims, so you can watch him. You see how he moves, and then you realize he was a 4-time Division II national champ wrestler. But you see how he moves on the feet and how advanced he is, and know that he's training under Mckee Senior. Along with all these powerful fighters at Team Body Shop's a serious gym. And so Joey Black Ice, that's the guy. But I feel like that is a good division. But I certainly understand. It might not be one that sets your hair on fire. To each their own, you know.
Well, with that being said, T, what? Okay, anything in again 2022 that you want to see Bellator do?
Oh man, just keep doing what they're doing and get these guys busy. You know, certain athletes can get 3 or 4 fights a year. It would be nice to see the average go from whatever 2 a year up 2.5 a year average, 3 a year. Like, get the guys you do have busier. Work it out contractually to where you're not going to run out of fights on contract at an inopportune moment. But I like what they're doing. They've been re-signing a lot of guys to new contracts. You know, Mix, Gallagher, they signed Jaleel Willis to a new one. Who else? It's been a bunch of guys. There's probably 3 or 4 other competitors just in this last week. Davion Franklin, one of the guys I've been telling you guys on these last shows, Davion Franklin, you got to look out for this guy. He showed it again. So Grant Neal just got a new contract. I won't bore you with trying to remember all these names, but they're doing what they need to do. People are trying to fight their way in the rankings. You move forward, or eventually you get moved out, and that money goes to the people who can fight their way up. And it's really gratifying to see Fedor ranked as high as he is, because he's not a sympathy case. He just beat the crap out of the guy they had ranked at number 2. So I think he was at number 2. Was Big Tim at number 2, right behind Moldavsky?
I think it was. Yeah, I think that's how they did it. I exited out of the rankings page a while ago.
Oh, here, I can look it up. It might have been, they had Congo above, right? Because Congo beat Karatanov. So yeah, so now Fedor's number 3. So so I love that, because the man I just want him to do what he wants to do and just build the sport in his own way. And so his team has taken over, but also he wants to fight at a high level. Some people want to see him in freak show fights. I'm good either way. I just want to see him compete. But I do think, if you have the champions, Bader and Moldavsky, are about to unify, then it's Congo, then it's Fedor. So what do? I mean, he's not going to fight Big Tim again. He's not going to fight Lyndon Vassell. Terrell Fortune just lost. Maori is actually the one I would do. If it didn't matter and it didn't matter how many people cared stylistically, Fedor and Steve Maori, tall Steve Maori, that would be my shit. But, I think you're going to see Fedor and Congo fight in Russia. And I can't wait, because I want to see Fedor knock yet another person spark out.
Okay. Well, Steve, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but we're actually running out of time. By running out of time, I mean, unfortunately, I'm going to have to head out. But with that being said, Teep, this is where you can plug all the stuff. I know you're doing a lot of boxing stuff as well.
In that case, before we even think about going, there is one more item of business we have.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah. I totally forgot about that.
And unfortunately, it's very, very, very sad that we have to report, even though we're probably the first podcast to do this, live or otherwise, that Jordan Young, American top team prospect, Bellator fighter, PFL fighter, died last night. And, I'm going to read a quote. I'm going to go ahead and read this Instagram post from Derek Santos, his trainer at American Top Team. It says, "Life throws challenges at you. I'm in a very sad mood. Last night, obviously, Derek was at the UFC event in Vegas. But last night, 20 minutes before our fight and subsequent victory, I got a call that one of the fighters I currently did boxing training for had passed. I left the locker room quietly, found a dark corner and cried. I couldn't believe it. I heard this voice in my head. I stood in disbelief before I got myself together to do the job. I've grown fond of Jordan Young. Like many fighters I've coached, he fit the type of athlete that I enjoyed working with. I'm sure his other coaches did as well. We formed a sincere and respectful relationship. He was always so appreciative of the time I gave him. Always replied, yes, sir, to any of my instructions, training, advice, strategy talks. He seemed to be overcoming obstacles. I've just been a fan of his. That in and of itself. Just a few weeks ago, we talked about how excited he was for 2022. And at that time, he took care of some injury that he wanted to schedule just to get back to work with me. When he spoke to me, I had such a good feeling for him. He was on such an upswing and a positive vibe after an injury-plagued career. I was really looking forward to seeing him and have continued success after his last big win. I pray for his mother, family, friends, and all who must be in a similar state of shock as I am. We lost a good kid. I pray for Jordan's soul. Rest in peace, Jordan Young. The year you worked with me gave me one of the few reminders of the many reasons why I'm passionate about the journey with my guys. It's not just a business to me, it'll always be extremely personal. God bless you on your new journey, Jordan. But still, though, it's fucking sad to hear the passing of somebody, and unfortunately, we don't know any details about his past, and more details will be made by the major MMA outlets later in the week, probably in the next couple of weeks. But damn, to lose life at 27 years old, and especially if you're a name, in Bellator and the PFL, and I think Bellator held a foundation for one of the fighters that passed away like a couple of years ago that's still going strong, that also came out of American Top Team. And I mean, damn, it's just sad to hear the death of fighters who know they got something going with their careers and wanted to do bright things, but still, I'm at a loss for words, and I'm sorry for interrupting the usual end of the show with that. So, T, you got any thoughts about the passing of Jordan Young?
Yeah, that's very sad. I saw the announcement on Twitter. I don't really, with things like that, I don't really post anything about it. Just grieve if there's a process, or just remember them. Try and send out some positivity in the universe. At thinking of them, and that is very sad. And thoughts with his family. May he rest in peace. He was a very good fighter, and I followed him on Twitter. I didn't see, I'm lost in the chaos, so I don't follow people's like feed post to post. But I just wish the best for his family, and it is very sad. And hopefully, he'll be remembered well by the community, because this is something older combat sports have dealt with. People pass away. You have to keep their memory alive. It's up to us.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, your thoughts on this?
You guys just, you basically echoed my thoughts. Sad, at least, he got to go. His career was through major organizations like Bellator, PFL. He got to be on television. He got notable major wins. His last fight was a win, so at least, at least there were some positives before he passed. It wasn't like a downward slope. It's not like, I like the what is it, like Evan Tanner or Justin Elias way back when, if you remember that, where Evan Tanner went into the desert, and depending on who speculation, some people believe he did it on purpose, other people think he got lost in the desert, who knows, but that was like near the tail end of his career. And then Justin Elias, who was part of, I think it was a murder suicide. He was killed by his wife, and then she shot herself. And I think was that post UFC. That may have been post UFC. When that happened, but I know it's kind of like a little bit better. I don't want to say it's better, but it's not as sad to me when somebody's at least there's because there's a lot of highlights of his career that people can look back, and there'll be positive highlights of it, as opposed to, if you go down, the line, like, oh, well, this is his fall from grace, and all that stuff. Like if let's say if Mayhem Miller died tomorrow, like if you ever try to do like something from the beginning of his career to the end, that's gonna be a fucking sad one. It's gonna be something.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to do a retrospective episode of Jason Mayhem Miller, I mean, obviously, a lot of people probably wouldn't care because of how much of an asshole that he is half the time, but they would be still kind of saddened about, why the hell did Jason Mayhem Miller lead his life, down a downward spiral that he couldn't get out of.
Yeah. So there's at least there's a slight positive going out, at when you're at your peak, or when on a high note rather than a low note. There's a little bit, it's a little bit more of a happier ending in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like the lesser of a whole many evils. But hopefully he'll just be remembered fondly. Maybe if nothing else, if there's a slight silver lining, maybe some fans it'll make certain portion of the fandom
but like
think
like the
twice.
greatest, Kurt Cobain. You know what? We can never say like that Nirvana, Kurt Cobain had anything like shitty like overall in their entire discography. They luckily they made a few albums, and you know what? They were all happen to be all greats, good to great. There was never like that Guns N' Roses thing where listen, when Axl Rose dies or anybody else from Guns N' Roses dies, we're gonna have to talk about Chinese Democracy being one of the most terrible albums of all time, in my personal opinion. So there's at least there's you can at least when somebody's died at their peak, I think there's a lot more positive to talk about, because then the dread of having to focus on the downfall is like it's kind of like something that you don't want to like really focus on, if you get that's my feeling.
Yeah, I
True.
think I think I think you're right.
But still, I'm sorry to end on a sad note there. I mean, obviously. It's obviously like Jim Valvano once said, if you have a little bit of happiness, if you have a little bit of no, if you have a little bit of love, life, and have your emotions reduced to tears, that makes a hell of a day. I don't know the exact quote now off the top of my head, but still, though, enough with all that. The one thing I want to ask before we get off, Teep, what is the one thing you hope for Bellator to, have this year, and then you can plug your shit away?
Well, I just hope that everything goes well and that they continue to just focus on fighter safety and hold those high standards and put on lots of great events. If there was one structural move, I would say they got to go to Amsterdam when the pandemic conditions allow it. You have you take your Dutch contingent and European contingent, do a big show in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the main thing. But I love what they're doing. I love where the company is at. I'm just really enjoying it and just excited and just thinking about how everything's playing out in between all the other shit I got going on in my life. So it's I'm very grateful right now. We're extremely spoiled as fans. Whatever we focus on in fight sports, we're very spoiled. It's a very rich
Yeah.
time.
And it's like you said, if they were to have a show in Holland or the Netherlands, as some people call them, imagine the amount of sold out buzz that they'll get from having like Denise Killholz or Gegard Mousasi headline. That's all I gotta say. But still,
Yeah,
you
and
gotta.
Boulade, and they've got some other guys too. They've got
Mhm.
and then from the neighboring countries, they could do a fantastic show in the Netherlands that would be relevant to that market. So when they do the
Exactly.
European shows, that's the primary thing is growing that market. We're actually the outside observers in those instances.
Exactly. But still, all in all, fun show. Got any shit to plug?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Twitter at TeeptotheJunk. That's TEEP. TeeptotheJunk, which just is just a joke about getting kicked in the balls because I
Mhm.
am lowbrow. You can find me on Reddit. It's also Teep to the Junk, but there's a little dash on either side of the name. And shout out to Jay Wolf. Shout out to thefightcity.com, which is a boxing website I'm associated with. And check out the Fight City on Twitter. And thanks to you guys. And just, big shout out to Scott Coker, Scotty Cokes, and the whole Bellator staff for providing a lot of great martial arts entertainment that isn't sort of tinged with negativity, because that's really what, at my age I'm at now I'm old and crusty. I really can't deal with all that BS between the suits and the athletes. I want things to run smoothly, and I want to see respect shown to the people who risk their health. And yeah, rest in peace, Jordan Young. And I just hope everyone has a great holidays and takes care of themselves, and just remember to laugh a lot. That's the best medicine for depression. You get laughing, and remember, a lot of these comedians are very unhappy people. So
I
it's not
mean,
like you're just submitting to some goofball. They're trying to escape the same sadness that we're trying to when we listen to them. So make sure you laugh and appreciate every moment of this crazy life. And thanks so much, guys. It's been a lot of fun. I got to go to work, so we're finishing right at the right time.
Yes,
No,
here.
man. And it's like Carlos Mencia once said: "If you ain't laughing, you ain't living, baby." And yeah,
That's the truth.
exactly. But Andrew, what's the one thing you hope Bellator can have for the upcoming 2022 year? And plug away some of your stuff from MMA Sucker.
Okay, I'll do plugging first, just to make it quicker. So MMAsucker.com, writing stuff for about Bellator and Rising usually. When it comes to 2022, I want to see Bellator make much more bigger tier fights. I think that they get a lot of great positive attention when they have like a big fight, like a Nemkov versus Bader or something along those lines. I think that they can they can get lots of eyes on them by just having great fights. But they gotta be with people who fans give a shit about. The Klein, the Holtzes and the Velasquez, unfortunately, fans don't care about them. Don't if you wanted to main event a show with like Nemkov versus Anthony Johnson, co-main with Velasquez, or something like that, by all means, go ahead. But I want to see them focus on making big main event fights that gets fans talking, because fans are legitimately interested in watching them. And if there's any indication that the Perez versus Horiguchi show certainly showed that.
Hell yes. And I know that you guys, separate from goofballs like me who just love everything, your guys going to keep them honest. You're part of the fabric of people who do push them to always do better and not just be along for the ride. I'm happily along for the ride at this point, but I know this is a part of your focus, how to promote. So hopefully Bellator continues to be sensitive to what fans are saying and just keep improving the delivery of this martial arts competition. Not just for people like me who enjoy it and watch regardless, but for people who may or may not tune in depending on how big certain fights are. So you're absolutely right. Could I also plug one other thing?
Yes, so I gotta do it quickly because we gotta, unfortunately, I have to head
20
out.
seconds. 20
Yes,
seconds. So the boxer I've been studying, Sam Langford, the Boston Bone Crusher, a Canadian-born, Boston-based fighter, one of the all-time greats. I have coming up a top 5 toughest seasons countdown that I'm doing with a gentleman named the Boxing Librarian, whose channel is Hardline Boxing Talk. And I'm going to have it on my channel, Random Acoustic Thoughts. You can find everything you need. Go type in that now, Random Acoustic Thoughts, here on YouTube, and just pay attention to that. This is one of the all-time greats. He's goes too far under the radar, and we're counting down his 5 toughest seasons from a career that spanned from 1902 to 1926. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm gonna bounce out. I got to go to work. Serious.
Okay, yeah, me too. Me too.
Exactly.
All right, fellas.
And you know what? Real quick, the one thing that I hope Bellator will do, and I know this has been mentioned this has been talked about ever since they've gone on Showtime. But the main thing I want to see is a boxing MMA doubleheader for Bellator and Showtime Championship Boxing. Or you know what? Do something like what they did with the 2 Dynamite shows. Have a boxing ring on one end, have an MMA cage on the other, and have fights take place concurrently, maybe in like San Jose or something.
That's a great idea. Do it at the SAP. Isn't that where they did the first Dynamite event?
Yeah, that's where they did.
Perfect. They already ran it like that. And you could put the prelims on simultaneously too if you on the 2 different broadcasts. Who knows? Yeah, do it. It's all Showtime. Just make it happen. Viacom, CBS.
Exactly. But other than that, it's been fun talking to y'all. We hope y'all listen to the show. You can hopefully check this show out on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast provided from, just as long as Andrew, updates every now and then, because he hasn't done so for this podcast in like 3 months. You can check out my podcast, Focus Fights Audio. It's available on Spotify and Google Play and all those platforms. Hopefully we'll update more to our YouTube channel, Focus Fights, soon. And, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Focus Fights or at Focus_Fights in the case of Twitter. And, you can obviously check out more of Focus Fights. Hopefully by the time, January does roll around, FocusFights.world will get updated and we'll have our first set of articles out. But other than that, thank you from all of us to all of you for enjoying everything there was to hear about Bellator and MMA. We normally talk about the Rise and Fighting Federation or just shoot the shit. But other than that, Andrew, Teep, thank you so much for steering the ship and steering the conversation. The next time we hope to talk again will be probably after Christmas. Obviously for the Rise and New Year's Eve card. And obviously our first show of 2022 will be the Rise and 33 preview, right? No, the Rise and 33 review, right?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, this has been fun. Y'all gotta go. I'm about to be one foot out the door. But before I even close things out, since it is Christmas week after all, I think I think our friend from Japan, the legendary Lenny Hart, has something that she would like to say.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good fight.
See y'all.